Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Overcoming the Podcast. I am your host, Taylor, doctor of occupational therapy, certified trauma professional, and trauma survivor. And today it is just me today, and I've been debating on what to talk about. And then it hit me kind of where I've been at lately. And one of the things that I talk about within SOS is coming back to your authentic self or being in your authenticity. And not only do I work for that in my own life as a human and as a professional and being trauma sensitive and all of that, but also modeling that to this community as to what that really is. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about authenticity and maybe stepping into your authentic self today. So bear with me. So, this conversation came about because I have been in the middle of something currently that I'm doing in my business, which is selling my courses that I'm just rolling out new courses and really excited about and things to help humans. And that, I've just kind of learned from what I've done before and doing things differently, more accessible prices, and figured out the style that works for me to maintain and everything. But one of the things that I struggled with around this time last year, and if you followed me, you may remember, is the idea of selling. To me, selling something or being like the salesperson is immediately equated with inauthenticity, and manipulation and just kind of like this icky feeling. And so the first time that I actually sold something that I was really proud of was this big course, which is the Overcoming the Foundations course. I had a really hard time with the aspect of selling because, like I said, I felt like it felt inauthentic and I couldn't think of how I could possibly sell from an authentic place because that just didn't exist, because someone's going to either perceive you as taking advantage or some way and somehow you're going to have something that benefits from yourself. So is that really like, sharing everything about that and being transparent in that and being authentic? Because I am gaining things from that. I'm gaining money, right? So like, am I really, being authentic in this like transaction, I guess is what I was really worried about. And being raised by a narcissist, that is one of the things that has always been really hard for me, is just this idea of manipulation, being inauthentic, being taken advantage of people for being seen as either nicer than you are or using certain things to get things from people. So that's one of my like deep traumas, is really what it comes down to, is like manipulation. And so when I first kind of went to face this and started living on my own and cut myself off from this person, or over 8 years ago now, I like overcorrected as to I was never going to possibly be seen as fake or anything else or manipulative or inauthentic, because I was always just going to always tell people what was on my mind 24/7, basically trauma dumping, oversharing, over justifying my presence, my existence, like basically just like sharing things and giving context to things that didn't need to be given in that capacity, and saying that that made me authentic. Well, looking back, I actually was quite inauthentic then. And it's interesting because I always thought that that meant that I was so authentic and vulnerable and all of those things. But when I kind of sit back and reflect now, I came from a very authentic place in my messaging and selling these courses to people. Selling no longer feels gross. It no longer feels manipulative. And I have found this place in me where I can be different versions of me. Like I can be the business owner. I can be the person that, yes, I know that I'm going to be making money off of this, but I also know that this is going to support you. I also know that I'm doing things to the best of my ability and how I know it will support you most. I know that I'm doing everything on my end to make things as accessible as I can. I know that I have done all of these considerations, and genuinely, truly, what I am doing is to help people. Because if it was about money, I would go back to my high paying job and in my career and just say goodbye to all of this and struggles and ups and downs and things as a new business owner, especially someone dealing with ADHD. But I haven't given this up and I haven't walked away. And so it's not about the money. It's about stability a little bit, but it's not about money. And once I kind of realized that about myself, I felt more comfortable sharing, is that like, okay, like I really am not someone who's coming from a place of, I just want to get money from you. I'm coming from a place of, my motivation is, I want to help you. And so one, it's recognizing who I am right? And where my intentions are. And then if my intentions are aligning with my actions and, really been working on that this year, but just really was just so proud of myself for how I was able to come through and not be defensive, not putting up projections, not really doing anything else pulling me away from myself, and just regardless of what I was doing, what role, whatever, I could still be me through all that I was doing. And maybe the task is to sell this course that in turn is to help people and, also provide me some stability, but I'm still me. And just because the task differs doesn't mean that I'm having to be a different self, that I'm inauthentic. It just means that it's a different task. And so it requires something different. And so that was the hard thing that I dealt with for a long time, of realizing that inauthenticity is not just not matching what you say, like words not matching actions. It's also, what part of you are you pulling from to make decisions and put intentions? Is it to please? Is it to try and make up for childhood? Is it, pulling from wounds and making your decisions in that way? Or is it really truly being able to connect with you and your soul and your heart, and listening to what you're drawn to and where your energy's at, and letting that lead your life? And that's just kind of what the authentic self is to me, is that at your core, you are able to listen and hear what the innermost part of you wants in this world, what they desire, what their strengths are, what their flaws are. It's just deeply getting to know and understand yourself. And even in the hard parts where maybe you're going to be triggered, and maybe, you're going to have these harder moments and darker. And, for me, I get into complaining modes and I get really sassy and, like I go through things, but just because I am that doesn't mean that I'm not my authentic self. I think authenticity is really, it's not this compulsion to share everything. It is being real and honest with yourself and accepting where you are and your motivations behind it all. So the reason that back in the day I wasn't authentic is because I was such a people pleaser. I was so worried about what other people thought of me, and I wanted to keep people around. I wanted to hold people accountable, but still please them in a way. And that I would pull out different parts of my personality that would mesh with certain people, even if I didn't feel that way. Or like, I wasn't like wanting to show up in that way. Like that didn't feel like me or what I was drawn to do, just to make someone else happy. That I was the person that in a room of someone saying, "Hey, what do you want for lunch?" Everyone's saying hamburgers and I want a hot dog. I would say hamburger. That I put everyone else's needs and desires and thoughts and opinions and motivations, and said it was empathy and care. But in the end, I put that above me. And I think the difference now that I can really fully step into my true self is that I'm still going to make the decisions that are right for me. I'm still going to listen to my heart and my soul and that inner voice that I know that is right, that is leading, because I have a connection with that now. I'm willing to show up and be judged. I'm willing to step into a conflict and share something that I know someone may or may not agree with. I don't have to overexpose my or justify my sense of who I am. I can just be comfortable and confident in that and just be. If I have a difference of opinion, or, I have something that I want to share that may be different or may be misconstrued, maybe sometimes I'll say this is my intent in sharing beforehand, but I don't need to over justify. It is just in my energy and it is just in my sense of me. And this grounded, it's really this groundedness and this like lightness that I feel, that is when I am most connected to myself, is when I am most connected to my passions and my motivations and why I do the things that I do. So just opening up this conversation about authenticity, I don't want you to think that just because everything is not happy and shiny all the time, or you're not revealing absolutely everything about yourself to everyone, that means that you are inauthentic. It's not the case. Stepping into your authentic self is stepping past the layers, past the projections, past the judgments, past what other people say, and really going back to who is that person? Who am I before the world told me who to be? And how can I remain true to that person in everything that I do? Even if there are different parts of me that come out in different things, doesn't mean I'm inauthentic. That just means that I'm adapting to the task in front of me. And the thing that comes up in my mind is unmasking, because you all know I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. And so having this idea of, wow, there's a lot of things that I've been holding back in my personality to try and fit in or be accepted, or, even just not completely put people off. And even when it comes to unmasking and being neurodivergent, it's not to say that you're going to be all weird and goofy and hands flying all the time and talking fast and stories going all over the place all the time. That's not unmasking. Unmasking is just allowing yourself to be led to what you are as you are. And, like right now, even though I am neurodivergent and I have ADHD, I'm in a very calm, peaceful, loving, gentle energy. And even though I'm a goofy, sassy human, it doesn't mean that I can't be gentle and calm and grounded sometimes as well. So there are so many parts to ourselves that I think that it takes time to explore and really get to know and enjoy and accept. And when you are really being your authentic self, I think it's that the highest version of yourself, not necessarily the best version of yourself, but maybe the one who is the most evolved or secure or whatever that is. It's like making decisions from that. What truly feels right. That when your body and like the energy feel like, if you can feel when something is wrong for you, where you kind of feel like a little like pullback or like a ooh, or like, you're like your body is holding back a little. Or if you're someone, where maybe your thoughts are and your desires are not matching your actions, does that mean you're inauthentic? Maybe sometimes there's other things behind it, but I really think that like when you are making decisions in alignment with what feels right fully to you and in your body, and you can have peace with that decision that feels right. I'm not hiding, I'm not masking, I'm not running, I'm not in a trauma response. That I really think is the authentic self. And some may have different opinions on this. The other thing that's so interesting too is like there's the new app on Instagram, that's basically like the new Twitter. Instagram runs Threads. And it's hilarious to me because there's a lot of professionals who on Instagram are, fairly curated or have like a different purpose or routine that they deal with, or, messaging that they're getting across in that area. That on Threads, everyone's just kind of like hot mess express, but it's kind of great. It's like unhinged and like those like random thoughts that you just like everything you're just randomly thinking, or like it's the goofiest, funnest, most unfiltered place. And it does feel like a very authentic, like safe place to be in. I mean, everyone's just kind of like being their full selves and unfiltered, and it's kind of great. And I hope it stays that way. But also it doesn't mean that those people on Instagram are inauthentic because it's aligned to the task, right? Whereas in this space, it's more about just like sharing random thoughts and like, sending out little random things here and there. What you're thinking, put it out there. What you're thinking, put it out there. Repost, rethread, whatever they're calling it. I don't think they're calling it anything yet, and just connect to people with what they're sharing. And that's the purpose behind that. So I think as trauma survivors, especially, it's really hard to know who I even am and what even is authentic versus not. And when I first kind of had the thought of who am I, gosh, it was probably about 7-8 years ago at this point, when I realized that my identity that I tied to myself was absolutely tied to everyone else around me. the roles, how other people saw me, that kind of thing. And I realized that that's when I was living for other people and not for myself, because I didn't know who else to be, right? I was codependent. I was a caretaker because that's all I knew how to be. And also, that's what I kind of had to step into and be in my family situation and circumstances. And, it took a lot of unlearning that to say, like, who really is Taylor? What does she want to do? And sometimes, a lot of people comment quite a lot, especially recently, on more of like my authenticity or being raw or being real or whatever that means. And for a while, I used to think that meant every time I have a hard moment, I need to share it with the group. That keeps me authentic. But it doesn't. It's it's really just being in alignment with yourself, and that as you are making decisions, that the true you feels good about that and it feels right in your body. That is peace and harmony, and not that you're like fighting against something or you're triggered or, it's like what the world told you to be. It's just as you are stepping into different things, different relationships, whatever it may be, it's owning what that is. If when I'm sure when I step into my next relationship, if I step into a next relationship at this point, it's I still have an anxious attachment. Now, am I much more secure? Yeah. But I'm still questioning someone's motives of if they like me. Maybe I'm a little too clingy at first. Maybe, it is, I get attached and I find that novelty in that person, right? And it can be hard when someone wants to do things separately or have needs and that kind of thing. And, I grow an attachment to this person. And then I'm also at the same time scared that they'll leave, right? But also I've been healing that in and out of relationships to where I feel comfortable to say, like, there are some things that will still come up where I know that I'm triggered and I know that's this, but I have the awareness to say, that's not my true self. That is a trauma response. That is not Taylor talking. That is anxious, attached, hurt inner child Taylor talking. And I can still act in my full self by saying, and being accountable and saying, I recognize what I'm feeling right now. I recognize this is a triggered place. I'm going to work through the stuff that I need to kind of come back to me and not be in this full triggered version and part of me right now. Get myself back to a regulated space, tap back into me and my true desires and that kind of thing and where I'm at. And then we'll kind of reconnect. It's not going to say that like I'm not going to be triggered. I'm not going to have those moments where I'm going to feel regretful or make a mistake. It's that I can recognize that and say, hey, that wasn't me. Let's come back now from a more grounded place and say, in alignment with who I am. Now, it's also not just because someone is being mean, for instance. Like this is one of those scenarios that I feel like the people who are genuinely kind people get themselves stuck in, because when someone is being mean to you or putting you down or whatever it may be, it's not necessarily about you just tolerating it and being nice and gentle and just being like, oh, okay, yeah, no, and then putting up with it or not saying anything. Sometimes being authentic is telling someone very directly, what you're doing is hurtful, and I see what you're doing. I don't appreciate it, and I will reconvene and talk to you when we can have a conversation when you're not doing this, or when you're not intentionally being hurtful, or just speaking up and saying, hey, that kind of hurt my feelings. It's just speaking from a place of truth. What is your truth? Right? It's not that I'm just going to let this go because I see everything. I'm not going to let people walk all over me just so I can be an authentic person. It's being real. It's sharing it like it is. And one of my favorite things too is like, I'm someone who deals with anxiety and anxious thoughts, and especially with ADHD, like wondering, the RSD component of like wondering, does someone actually not like me? Is there something more going on that they're not sharing? Like, hi, that's my trauma, right? And so when those thoughts come up, instead of keeping that internal, I'll just say, hey, I have this story in my head that this is happening. Can we talk this out? instead of coming from a place of, can you please tell me, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Like, did I do anything? Like, not coming from that place, but instead like, this is what's happening in my head. And I want to know if this is true for you. And if so, can we talk about this? Like, it's being able to say, here's my internal experience that is valid and like important to add to this conversation, and like confronting this conversation without coming off as saying, I'm going to manipulate this, I'm going to try and like bait you into talking to me, I am just going to push you away and act like you're mad at me and maybe react in that way. It's just saying, this is what I'm noticing, can we talk now? And here's the thing, is some people are not safe to do that with. And that's the other thing too, is like, as you step into alignment with you, right? So first you kind of, we're in this like trauma response for a while, we're in these survival mode patterns, and then we kind of like almost base our personality, which feels like, oh my gosh, is my life a trauma response? Which maybe mine was. Maybe, right? And that's a shock, right? But what happens slowly over time is you start learning how to make decisions that are more in alignment with you, and it's not just a version of you that is triggered or hurt or influenced by other people all the time, or whatever it may be. You start learning who you are, your values, your beliefs, your likes, your dislikes, what feels right, that kind of thing. The risks that you take, those are in alignment with what feels right to you. The sacrifices you make, those are in alignment with what feels right to you. That it's not that there aren't going to be these nuances and ups and downs and all of these things. It's not that you're not going to fail. It's not that you're not going to have bad moments and hard moods and make mistakes. It's not that. It's at the end of the day, if you can really check in with yourself and own up to that and be accountable, and then kind of step into your energy and be like, okay, so outwardly, this is trauma, having this awareness to be like, okay, this was a traumatic reaction, or this was something that doesn't feel in alignment with who I am anymore, or we're working to make better decisions here. Who am I really, and what do I want? Right? And so for me, some of the things have been acting in alignment of my authenticity, especially as a business owner, is that I get a lot of advice a lot of the time to go a different way with what I'm doing. And nothing in my body, even though sometimes there's like, I've struggled with money before, or there's been like less traction or not much response, or it's just like, it just doesn't feel like there's much moving in the SOS community or in my business world, or just in general, that people tell me all the time, well, why don't you just go do this? Why don't you just, go do that? This feels like the smart choice. This feels like the whatever. And nothing in my body tells me that's right. And so for a while in my business, I chose a place of flexibility and prioritizing the ability to show up for people. And that included like sacrificing some stability and some financial stability. And I had to deal with some of the triggers around that. And there were some really hard times. But ultimately, it was a choice that I made that was in alignment with my true self, that was like fully authentic self showing up, saying, no, this is right to do, regardless of if we fail here, regardless of this. I know this is what I need to be doing in this way, and following that. Another example for me was starting this podcast. I, at the time, was doing a podcast with one of my friends who I really adore. And we were doing like a spiritual podcast, which is funny to me. And, we just had like these great conversations, but I was really feeling like there was something more that I wanted to do with SOS. And so I was kind of doing like two different avenues. There was like one side of me here and one side of me here. And it was hard to like prioritize all the things. And I really was at the time thinking about, I really want to expand SOS and take things to another level. And I really feel like that's a podcast. And I knew that I wasn't able to do both. And so a lot of the things that we talked about within the pillars of SOS, I actually came up with while I was like having a conversation with this friend in the middle of that podcast recording, as like what we ended up taking as one of the first few episodes. That a lot of the things about SOS, like our pillars of self-awareness, self-management, and vulnerability, literally came out as we were recording one of those. It was like one of my monologues. Like sometimes that's what happens. I'm podcasting and like my, like, just speaking for me, that is one of my internal experiences that I get all the time, is like I will be just like speaking and like teaching and educating, and all of a sudden some huge breakthrough will come through for me that I'm like, oh, and it applies to my life or business or something. And it's just this really cool phenomenon that happens a lot. And so for me, being authentic to myself was recognizing that while I enjoyed doing this with my friend, I knew that I kind of had to step away from this because I wanted to and felt a deep desire and like pull and knew it was right and everything, not just an impulsive thing, to expand SOS and start a podcast. And that would mean walking away from that. And so I had to have this hard conversation of, I appreciate doing this with you, but there are other factors with time and planning. And I would just be better if I could do something by myself and do something that is more focused on SOS. And that's when Overcoming the Podcast was born. And honestly, it was a hard conversation and put a blip in our friendship for a minute. Like we both kind of were a teeny bit triggered and communicated through it and said, obviously I'm not trying to take things from you or whatever it was. And we worked through it and we got through it and we're still friends. And thank goodness we've both been on healing journeys and could do that. But, it was because of that that SOS is what it is now. That when I started this, we barely had any of y'all here. And I didn't have much as far as resources to offer people outside of just the courses, or I didn't even really have courses at that point. It was just like the reels and things that I even just started recording, because I didn't really show up like talking at all. And I knew that's what I needed to start doing. And so once I started doing that, a lot more aligned. But that was making a decision and to shift a path that was in alignment with me and what felt right internally, like deep, deep down, like in my soul. And I really feel like your authentic self really is like this, like deep inner soul pull that you can connect with just your energy. I don't know how else to say it without making it sound woo woo. And I'm sorry, but that's really what it is. It's like, regardless of what you believe, you are who you are past all of the trauma and the layers and the conditioning and all of that stuff, right? So reconnecting to yourself to you is what? Maybe you're doing something in a like activity that brings you joy and is like a flow state where you can kind of have presence and be and feel connected to maybe like your inner sense of self. Maybe for some people that's meditating, maybe for someone that's playing the violin. I'm not sure, but the point is that once you find these activities that bring you like peace and just this like lightness, I think that's a really good indicator of like, oh, this feels good in my body. There's no real resistance. Like this, just like no resistance, I think really is the key, is that that's a really good indicator of like, oh, well, I should explore that more and what else within that. Right. Um, Sometimes my authentic self is attention seeking. And that's something that I've had to own up to and be like, oh, wait, once upon a time, I was not portrayed correctly. And like, this whole thing of like misrepresented, whatever. And so when I want something, I go after it. And I also have my kid who was on stage. So sometimes I'm like, hey, how can I make you laugh? Sometimes I'm like, hey, pay attention. Right. And I have to recognize that, oh, that's actually sometimes that's more of an ego, right? But I like connecting with people, and I like being seen, and I like being heard, and I like being validated. But like, do I need to be the center of attention? No. Do I like attention? Yeah. I think humans in general do, right? And so, but is that my full sense of belonging? No. At the end of the day, I spent pretty much a year alone, so I must not like that much attention if that's the case. But I think that it's just being comfortable in your own presence, and not trying to like run or hide or lie to yourself, and then being able to show up that same way that you would in your internal world with you in your head with others. And I think that's important. And again, it's not revealing all of your deepest vulnerabilities. It's not saying that you're inauthentic if you aren't sharing absolutely every thought in your head. It's saying that you're not shifting your energy to be or fit somewhere or do something else. And it's been interesting because I have had some eyes on me lately that I haven't had before, a new audience, if you will, and some people who I would say are further along in the creator world than I am, and just what they do professionally in general. And there was a piece of me that had a desire to be like, ooh, are they going to like this about me? Oh, maybe I should like not be as much of this, or maybe I should whatever. And I didn't act on that. However, it was there and it was a thought, and I had to recognize that that's actually more aligned with trauma. That's not aligned with my authentic self. And so some of the hard things too is that sometimes being our authentic self, we miss opportunities. Sometimes we won't fit in certain places. Sometimes there are things that we want that aren't really suited for us. And that's when we want to shift and I can be what you want, right? And I think in those moments, especially, that's when it's that much more important to honor yourself above those things. And I have kind of aligned myself and my life starting off at pretty much a rock bottom part where I just let everything that didn't vibe with me and my true self and didn't feel in alignment go. And my life was pretty empty for a while. Like I said, I was pretty much alone for a year. But what I have found is by maintaining the one boundary and the one like kind of view and rule that I set for myself is that now that things are empty, we're not going to just go back to just to fill things, step out of alignment, no matter how long it takes. We're going to see, is this in alignment with me? And if not, then it doesn't belong. Does this resonate? Does this feel like this fits in? Does this fit in with where I'm actually looking to go in my life? Does this fit in with my own plans, my own energy, my own self? It's not saying everyone has to be like me, nothing like that. It's really just like, does this clash? Does this drain my energy? Does this fill me up? Does this bring me peace? What's going on here? And kind of just started only saying yes to things in my life, whether that's jobs or people or even just going out places or what day that I do things that felt in alignment. And sometimes, yes, I was walking away from opportunities. Truly, I've walked away from quite a bit of money. We try not to think about that. But, anyways, because it was not in alignment with me. What's really interesting is that as I've been doing that, things have slowly started to fill in a way that as my life is more full now, I am much more content because I'm not fighting against myself in all that I do. I am not masking or pretending to be someone else that I'm not in relationships with anyone, whether that's business or anything else. And even it's really interesting because it's like level unlocked since I have a team now of like CEO me, like boss lady me, who's the leader and creator and delegator and very powerful. Honestly, I'm like, dang girl, you go. But that's also not inauthentic because even though certain sides of me might come out more in certain roles, that's just who I am. And I have to remember that I've always naturally been a leader, so even if it's in a different role and I can shift gears real fast, just because you can pull out different aspects of yourself to do different things, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily inauthentic. Now, if you're doing it for reasons to like make someone like you that doesn't feel right, then it's a little different, right? But really, it's like podcast Taylor, life story preach Taylor, inspirational Taylor is no different than the version of me who's complaining because the universe is taking its time with these things that I know are going to happen but aren't happening, and holy cow, it's the same me at my core. I'm just pulling out different aspects of myself based on the situation, but I'm still in alignment with who I am at the end of the day. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit. I know that was talking a little bit about my own life and that kind of thing, but it's like even as a business owner, I've really found this the most, that it can be really hard because there's so much that there are many roles that you have to embark on, especially when you're starting out. And like, I didn't have help. I didn't have the money to have help. I also was like trying to do everything on my own. Now I have a team, which is wonderful. Makes my life so much easier. And like, it truly is better because I have a team. But it still doesn't lose the sense of like individuality, I guess, that it has, and like the vision, which is great because I've learned to trust people in that way, especially with my business, which is huge because this is my baby. Anyways, but also it's that I can still be all of these things, but in regardless of what I'm doing, that I'm being true to myself, my values, the core, and listening to my inner voice. and my intuition and responding to my own energy above the other factors around me. And I truly believe that that is being in connection with your authentic self. And, there was actually a situation recently where started off a conversation in the DMs from, a professional who was just like, I love what you do, blah, 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 let's collab, whatever. And then it became clear that it was like they were trying to sell me into something for some kind of service, but the way they were going about it was like roundabout, and I knew what they were doing. And then I kind of like stopped responding at one point. So I was like, one, I don't have the energy for this right now. Two, I just like don't know how to respond nicely right now. So I'm like not going to. Um, sorry, not sorry. And then they responded to me again. They said, are you still with me? And I could have been like, oh yeah, no, I'm still here, which I would have. But what I was feeling was that this doesn't fit and I don't like this. And I said, actually, not really. I'm not really looking for services right now. I can feel where this conversation is going, and I am not going in the same direction that you are or what you're looking for. My business is going in a different direction than what you're selling me right now, and I'm just actually not interested. So I think this conversation is done, but I appreciate you reaching out and I appreciate the kind words, but I don't really have anything else to contribute in the way that you want to steer this conversation. Whoo! Like, was I mean about it? No, but was I very direct? Yeah. So first of all, I was really proud of myself that I was like, go, people please, especially in business stuff. Like normally I'll just be like, oh, sorry. Yeah. Love me, but, it was more of just like, hey, I see this. I'm not comfortable with this actually. And we can stop talking about this, but sorry, this didn't go the way you wanted it to go, but no, thank you. Like, no, thanks. And so, and that's just kind of what happened, but I didn't cave. I wasn't rude. I wasn't triggered. I was just direct and sharing about my own internal feelings and where I was going and how it wasn't in alignment. And that's it. And I think that's really cool because it did not feel in alignment. And I was able to say that. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't have been a great opportunity. It doesn't mean that, but it didn't feel in alignment and I didn't feel connected to the way the conversation was going. And so I shared that. And I had other things to focus on. I was in the middle of like a launch week, like we have courses out right now. Like, come on, man. So it's kind of cool to really like listen to your inner voice and then like have that inner voice reflect what you do and how you act and how you show up. And when you take the time to, yes, it's really sucks for a while to pull back and realize how much of your life really does not reflect who you are once you start to figure that out and you're unlearning and you're healing and you have this like huge awakening. Like my first conscious awakening was like, whoa, everything's a trauma response. But I feel like every little blip since has been like, right, we're rebuilding. And the people that are in my life now are aligned. They see me, they appreciate me, they can be real with me, I can be real with them. We have similar visions in general in life, similar values around self-growth and healing, regardless of if that is the same thing we're healing from or whatever, just growth and development and desire to improve as a human being in general, is a really important value that a lot of my people share. And I actually think all of my people share. I don't really mess with stagnant people or like people who can't be accountable. It doesn't jive. And that's definitely not where I'm going. I'm someone who's like growth, transformation, nation. Like that's just who I am. So I don't really want people who I'm going to feel like I'm pulling along anyway. So I want people genuinely who can keep up with me. And so that's kind of where I'm at in life, like who can grow with me, right? Like not that like, if we're at a different level, then you're not in alignment. It's nothing like that. It's just that we're both moving in the same direction. And so those are the people in my life right now. If I can't speak my truth to you in a kind, therapied way, and if you jump into these, like really defensive or toxic or whatever, or trauma responsey or whatever responses, and don't let up, and even like with stepping away and reflection and whatever, that you can't listen to something that maybe doesn't feel comfortable to you or that you don't agree with, and you can't just agree to disagree, then we are not in alignment. And that's been really hard because it doesn't mean that you're around people all the time who you always agree with. It means that you're around people who can be open-minded and introspective and not take everything personal. And so that's been a really cool shift because people in my life used to take things so personally and be defensive or put it on me for a very long time. And it's not to say that like I don't also mess up, and anyone in my life knows that I'm probably one of the most accountable people that they will ever encounter, like sometimes too accountable and honest. Um, is there a thing about that? Maybe. I think you can be too accountable and too honest. I will always find the smallest thing like I could have done better or I was off in this way, even if there's like a 90-10 situation, I'll still be owning up to my 10%. Absolutely, like every time. And I think that's also because I was raised by a narcissist and like transparency is important to me, right? So I think that it's just like you can still be make mistakes and be messy and have all of these sides to you, but at the end of the day, it's recognizing and then coming back to you and then making your decisions from that standpoint and what feels right to you, and that your body is not resisting, that your mind is not resisting. um Again, yeah, when things are scary, even if they're right, there's going to be things, there's going to be difference between like anxiety and like truth. And so you have to definitely figure out like what is intuition, what is my inner voice, what is my, authentic self versus what is just also like fear, because this is new and different and scary, right? Like one of those things for me is how I'm shifting things here is like it's very much in alignment with my true self, but I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared. And my ego is a little bit off, right? In situations before where like I have felt rejected or things didn't pan out the way that I thought they were going to, or whatever. I will own up to that. And also it's still, I can look back and say, some things I didn't like about how I acted there. Sorry. Like I didn't like that, or I shouldn't have been this way, or whatever. I own up that like I took that really personally, right? Like now I can do that. But in the moment, sometimes I'm like, well, that's not worth my time. I'm just gonna go this way. And I think I've learned a lot since then is that even if things are uncomfortable, you can still be open and honest, without fear of harm, I guess, is the big thing. Is like once you can really step into this trust with yourself of like, I know myself, I've got myself, regardless of what happens in this situation, I can take care of myself, and you know that about yourself, then you can step into authenticity. And I think part of the reason that I wasn't able to is because I was like so much fear of what could happen if. And there are things that happen if sometimes when I make decisions that people don't like, or that they wouldn't do, or they share advice or whatever, or they're bothered by something that I did. And it's not like I'm doing things to hurt people. I'm just not living life the way that they think I should live my life. I mean, okay, fair, but also that's people's stuff they're putting on you, right? And recognizing as humans, we naturally do that, and that's going to happen. But it's like when it gets to be a controlling thing, that's different, obviously. But even just people being like, "Are you sure you want to do it this way? Are you whatever?" Before, I would be afraid and be like, oh, if I go against whatever, what are they going to say? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to this? Some of my friends have been like, Taylor, you are making a dumb decision. And not in a place of like toxicity, but like, think this through, girl. And I'm like, I know what it looks like, but I need to trust my gut. And I do. And my gut is right. Like, it's right for me. Right. So it's being in a place of authenticity is really being able to listen to yourself over everyone else and making decisions that are in alignment with you. And it is scary when that happens. And especially as we keep growing and connecting deeper with who we are, we may find that what we were doing before doesn't fit this now. And so we have to shift. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. And sometimes that's letting people go who didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but it just doesn't align anymore. Right. Like we just grow out of people sometimes too. And I think that's okay. Or jobs, or whatever it may be, right? So just keep that in mind, that as you move forward in your life and in your healing, that ultimately what I tell you all the time is like reclaiming your authentic self, and then your life is really figuring out who you are and being able to listen to that to make decisions that creates a life that is in alignment with who you are. I could have summed that whole episode up in a minute. It's fine. It's fine. I hope this was helpful. Also someone who I am is I have the gift of gab and ramble. So this is who I am. I also sing song when I feel weird, or if I just did something that felt uncomfortable or like I shouldn't have. So, you know, it's fine. You guys have probably figured that one out by now when I'm like a little bit like, oopsie, sing-songy. It's fine. Or stressed. I do that when I'm stressed too. Anyways, why am I revealing my secrets right now? It's fine. I am who I am in all of my authenticity. Sometimes that is weird and goofy. Sometimes that is grounded and calm. Sometimes that is spiritual. Sometimes that is very much connected to the world around me. Sometimes that means I'm super introverted. Like, it's just me being in alignment with myself and being okay with that at the end of the day. Not everyone's going to like me. Not everyone's supposed to. And I know that also one of the things I've had to sit with is I'm a polarizing presence. People either like me and vibe with me or they can't stand me. And sometimes it's for no reason. They're like, that girl's fake, that, or they're hiding something or whatever. Or they're just like, they find something to just hate. Oh my gosh. Like I have had people who just like loathe me. And I'm like, okay. Like I just, instead of trying to fix that or take that personally, I just recognize that that's on them and I'm in alignment with myself and they're not in alignment with me. So if they don't like me, okay. If they really don't like me, maybe they need to look at like what mirror that's reflecting to them. But you know, also not my problem anymore. So that's kind of how I've been able to like show up as me, especially on the internet when, gosh, the internet has opinions. Especially when a video goes viral probably from a trauma survivor's perspective, of course, and everyone has something to say about like how you chose to go about your healing journey or whatever, or, you know, the society's projections or how dare you go no contact or whatever it is. You must be the crazy one. I remember I had a comment at the beginning of this that I, you know, because I talk with my eyes, okay? I'm expressionful. I don't think that's a word, but anyways. And so I was making a point in one of my reels and like I act in my reels, y'all, just because I'm like acting like if something is like sad or whatever, like I'm conveying a point, I'm connecting to an emotion to convey a point. I was an actress, and just because like we're talking about hard things doesn't mean I'm always in a bad mood or whatever, right? It doesn't mean that I'm inauthentic. It means that I'm like doing this to use as a tool. But anyways, so I was talking about gaslighting, I think it was, or like toxic phrases people say. And one of the things was like someone said something horrible, and my thing was like conveying with my eyes, like, are you kidding me? And someone commented, it was like, why would anyone listen to you? You're definitely that biatch with crazy eyes. And I was like, and what's really funny is normally when my eyes get big like that, that means that I'm mad and I'm trying to withhold something and not that I'm crazy. I'm like, careful, stop me. But I took that to heart at first and I was like, oh, but now it's funny because I get things like that all the time where it was like, you look funny, you whatever, your voice is whatever. Why don't you look in the mirror? Whatever it is, right? And I just like, I literally can look at it and laugh and go, okay, delete, not helpful. We don't need that here. Thank you. Like, I don't take it to heart anymore. It doesn't bother me because I know who I am. And I know I'm not just like a complaining, whiny teenager on the internet who's looking for attention and who's just cutting everyone off because they hate them. Like, I know who I am. I know why I do the things that I do. And I'm very comfortable in my decisions because it's in alignment with me and in my life and my true self. So when people have comments to say otherwise, that they don't agree, they can disagree. And also, it's not a reflection of me, or nor does it shift how I'm going to move in this world, because I have been moving forward in things that are only in alignment with me. I'm pretty freaking content right now. Even though there are definitely things that could be better and there are definitely things that could be added to my life, or, you know, things that could feel more stable or whatever else. We'll always have stuff, right? Overall, where I am in my sense of self and my journey is pretty dang content. And I love that for me. And I want everyone to be able to find ways to get here and connect with your authentic self, to reclaim yourself and make your life what you want so you are genuinely finding happiness. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy go lucky all the time. It means that you're living with things that are in alignment and fulfilling to you, because you get to decide what's in your life or not. It's like that quote, you're not a tree. If you don't like it, move. Sometimes we think we don't or we can't. We have a lot more power than we think. Sometimes it's risky, but if it feels right, is it worth the risk? I believe that nothing that is meant for you will ever pass you by. and that listening to your gut, you will be steered in the right direction. That's a personal belief for me. And it has been the case, even if it's not always gone the way that I want it to be. That's the case. So that's what I have to say about that. Don't feel like you have to justify, be all, end all, be all. You can be you. But at the end of the day, coming back to you and making decisions that are in alignment with past all of those layers and having that awareness of when it is a layer and when it is you. So I really think that's what healing is, coming back to you. And that's why I empower survivors, even in the work we do. And especially when I had one-to-one clients, is to come back to you. And you're the one in control, and you're the one making the decisions and what feels right to you. You're the one driving your healing. I'm here to support and maybe to guide if you need a little bit of help, but I'm not someone who's going to give you the directions and the plan, because that's not what healing is. I'm not giving you the specifics because you're the one who has to give them. Now, as you say, I'm here, I need help or tools with this. Yeah, I'll do that. But I'm not going to direct your healing journey, nor should anyone else. Because you, uniquely you, know exactly what you need. Your body intuitively knows how to heal. Your body knows what you need and where you're going. You just have to learn how to listen and follow. And that's why I'm here, to help people learn how to listen and follow and teach you the tools along the way. And with that, my phone is blowing up over here and I got to go somewhere. But I appreciate all of you. I am looking forward to anyone who is dealing with who's on the freebie and got the course. Until the 15th, if you have not seen, I don't know if there are people listening who like don't follow me elsewhere. I have a new course that I have put out. I am working on something amazing, honestly. The second one for sure is like truly the best work I've ever done. And like, I can't even begin to explain, but I will soon. But right now I am protecting everything that I need to before I release. However, right now I have a free course. I call it the emotional breakdown course, where we break down emotions, because hopefully you're not having a breakdown, but if you are, I got you, because I like the puns. And so I have that, and that is about 40 minutes, and it's just free background on emotions and some understanding of self-regulation. And it's not just fluff, it's helpful. So you can get that for free if you're on my email list, which if you go to the link, it's like the bio.site/SOS with Dr. Taelor. Then you can get to all of those links and you can sign up on the Overcoming email list and you'll kind of get access to that. I also, the course that I'm working on that is like freaking amazing, that is not released yet. I do have it up for pre-sale right now and through the July 15th, 2023, depending on when you're listening to this, it will be on sale for $27, which is about 55% off. Again, I do things to be accessible and that kind of thing. And then it's not going to go away. I'm not like taking the course off the market. It's going to be in the library. It just won't be the discounted price as I build the library. So that's what I'm doing that feels good and in alignment to me and my business and all the things that I do. So that's what's going on. So if you are interested, go check it out. It's real good. I share the things that really I feel like are building blocks, and I have enough knowledge to know what's important in the healing world. And so I'm starting with those skills, but I'm going to be switching off on, focused topics. I'm hoping for once a month. We'll see how my energy and my time allows. But because I do have a team, it makes it a lot easier to just do that. And now that I'm not doing one-to-one services, I just really have the ability to focus on that. And yeah, so I'm going to have different topics. And then from there, that's kind of what happens. And then if you want to connect on Instagram and like after you do the courses, and because we don't have live face-to-face time anymore, if you are wanting to do more of that, then I'm kind of doing it through Instagram subscriptions, and we'll do lives for subscribers only. So it's $5 a month. And that includes as many lives as we do. And that'll be just based on demand and what you guys are wanting. So, yeah, that's the way to kind of do the face-to-face Q&A time afterwards, but it's self-paced, pre-recorded. And, it feels a lot better, not only with my energy and how things are variable in my life, but also to support you and your needs and your nervous system. And it's there when you need it and have capacity for it. And you don't have to rush or try and keep up with the course or anything. And just feels right. It feels good. With the vision that I have and just moving forward. So speaking of in alignment, this is one of those things that is in alignment. So definitely go check it out. We've already gotten great feedback. So I'm really excited about that. It's been a warm and fuzzy day. Like I just had yesterday I had so many people reach out to me and be like, how are you doing? This is so good. Thank you for this, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just like a warm and fuzzy time where like this time last year, I was like yelling at you guys, like, I hate selling, blah, blah, blah. Which I mean, truly, selling is probably the least favorite thing about being an entrepreneur for me. Cause like, I know it's important, but like, I don't want to have to like sell you on it, you know, cause like, I don't want to like push you out of your window of tolerance. That's not, but like, my now selling is just sharing the value in what I'm doing and genuinely knowing that it's helping people. And if it's no, it's no, and that's okay. And it's not just like feeling icky or anything like that. So I found a way to like be myself even when I am selling a course. So really all I'm doing is sharing that it exists and what's in it. So that's pretty cool too. Right. If you relate to me, my style, that kind of thing, you probably will like Education Taylor. If you like the podcast, you'll like the version of me that's like teaching and educating too. So maybe check that out, and much more accessible. And yeah, thank you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you in this community. And it's really cool to see yourself grow as a human being. But also like see the people around you grow and shift. And when you're in alignment with the people around you, it's kind of cool because you all just kind of start shifting together in the same direction. And it's just like really cool to watch and be a part of. So those people, you know who you are. I love being on this journey with you. Even in our times where it's like, oh my gosh, struggle bus. Probably shouldn't have said struggle bus, struggling. I think that's probably not politically correct anymore. That was more a childhood thing that came out. Anyways, my apologies. But struggling, hardcore. But it's a wonderful journey because you're in alignment with the people that are going with you through all of it. And it's really cool. So I'm very grateful and blessed to be where I am and to be in alignment with my true self and have the things around me that align too because of the courageous decisions and the hard decisions I've had to make. But wouldn't change it for the world. So thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Talk soon.